Coming up next on Arizona Horizon, state lawmakers react to the death of Eddie Bacha. We'll have that and more in our weekly legislative update with the Arizona Capital Times. ASU law professor Paul Bender will analyze the two gay marriage cases heard by the U.S. Supreme Court this week. And we'll hear about an effort to push high-tech investment tax credits in Arizona. Those stories next on Arizona Horizon.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of Eight, members of your Arizona PBS station. Thank you.
Good evening and welcome to Arizona Horizon. I'm Ted Simon. State lawmakers react to the death of legendary businessman and education advocate Eddie Bacha. That begins our weekly legislative update with Luigi Del Puerto of the Arizona Capital Times. Good to see you, Luigi. What were you hearing down there? I mean, Eddie Bacha is a legendary name here in Arizona.
That's true. And this is one guy who's made a lot of money and shared much of that back to the state. And so you saw the kind of admiration outpouring right away when the news about him passing away hit the news yesterday. And even today we're still seeing those tributes to him. And today lawmakers also paid their tribute to Eddie Bacha. And it's just, one of those rare occasions when you have lawmakers from both sides of the aisle united on something and reflecting on truly what's important, which is the fact that we do have to face death at some point, and this is a guy who's earned a lot and given a lot.
Indeed, and a champion of education, and did work with Republicans and Democrats, which is refreshing to think about it back in the day.
Right. And I was just looking actually at some of his contributions in the last couple of election cycles. I wanted to see where he was contributing to, and he did contribute both to Republicans and to Democrats. And, this is the guy, you often hear about biblical references in the Bible and how to live your life, etc. And this is a guy who truly, I'm not sure about his religious background, but it appeared like he truly lived by the biblical code of to whom much is given, much is also required.
Indeed, and so many of the charities that he gave to, community service groups, these sorts of just individuals, no one ever knew about it. No one probably will ever know the extent of how much that went on, and yet that sense of compassion does seem to be his legacy. And
we heard some of that even today. And TJ Shope, who's actually a grocer, recounted a story about how there's a consortium of small grocers in the state, and at one point their supplier went out of business, and I think 15 of them suddenly were without a supplier, and how Eddie Bacha essentially rescued them, opened his warehouse to them and said, you know what, here's my warehouse, whatever you guys need, and that Shope said, helped them out.
Indeed. Champion of education, again, as we mentioned, lost the 94 governor's race to Fife Symington, served on the Board of Regents, and was just involved in on a lot of things. All right, Luigi, thanks for that. Before we let you go, though, we do want to get to some legislative issues. Medicaid talks, what's going on with that? And especially, I'm curious, the governor had that I'm pro-life, that's why I'm for Medicaid expansion. How is that playing down there?
Yeah, that's a very good question, Ted. When the governor unveiled the details of her Medicaid expansion plan, the one thing that really stood out was when she said, this is a pro-life position. I'm for saving the unborn, but also saving those who are already born. And she made that pitch, I think, to many people's mind to try and attract and persuade lawmakers who are candidly pro-life. But it seems like she's not really getting a lot of traction using this argument. In fact, the Center for Arizona Policy, the biggest lobby group of the evangelical Christian community in the state, has taken a neutral position and has sent out a letter to the governor, Mr. Biggs, and Mr. Tobin this week, basically saying that while we are neutral on this Medicaid expansion plan, we are concerned that expanding Medicaid may provide more funds to groups that do provide for an abortion, sort of an indirect way of subsidizing their abortion services. So that's an interesting argument. It's not new. We've heard that from Carl Seal on the floor this week as well. But I'm curious to know, like you, how that's going to play out with a Republican base.
I was going to say, but when CAP says they're neutral, that's a very different than we're lining up and we're going to amass forces against this.
Yes, that's true. And in fact, if you recall, during the debate on Prop 204, this is the debate last year about whether to extend the 1-cent sales tax. They came out sort of from the left field, out of the blue, and basically said, we are concerned about some of this money going to provide or to be used to subsidize abortion or directly for abortion procedures. And we know what happened to that proposition.
Otherwise, everything kind of just budget talks. Everything kind of slow right now, huh?
Everything's kind of slow. They're passing bills in a trickle. A reporter asked the governor today whether she's taken out her veto hammer out of the box, and the governor said, nope, we're not doing that yet.
Not yet.
Not yet.
All right. Luigi, good to have you here. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Get the inside scoop on what's happening at Arizona PBS. Become an 8 Insider. You'll receive weekly updates on the most anticipated upcoming programs and events. Get the 8 Insider delivered to your email inbox. Visit azpbs.org to sign up today.
The U.S. Supreme Court this week heard oral arguments on 2 same-sex marriage cases that have the potential to result in landmark rulings. Here with analysis of what happened this week is ASU law professor Paul Bender. Always a pleasure. Good to see you.
Same here, Ted.
Give us now what happened this week with both of these bills, both of these cases, and how they could impact Arizona.
Well, yeah, I think that's worth talking about at the beginning. The only way these cases will impact Arizona is if the court were to hold that it is unconstitutional for any state to ban gay marriage. That is the broadest holding in the attack on the California statute. That, of course, if the court did that, that would strike down the Arizona constitutional provision, which says marriage in Arizona is between one man and one woman. If they don't do that, it'll have no impact on Arizona at all, because if they hold the California proposition unconstitutional on narrow grounds, which is what the Ninth Circuit did, those grounds only apply to California and maybe a couple of other states that have very broad civil unions. So that wouldn't matter. If they uphold the California proposition, that won't have any impact on Arizona, because the California proposition says you can't have gay marriage, and Arizona says the same thing. The New York case, the federal statute, which was argued today, has no impact on Arizona, because the question there is, in a state that legalizes gay marriage,
yes,
is it constitutional for the federal government to treat gay married people as unmarried for federal purposes? And so that doesn't impact Arizona, because in Arizona gay marriage is not legal. And if the court in the California case should hold that gay marriage has to be made legal, then that'll make gay marriage legal in Arizona, and federal benefits will go to all those people anyway.
So let's separate the cases quickly if we can. Yesterday, again, California's Prop 8 kind of the focus here. It sounded like the arguments were interesting to the point to where some of the justices were kind of wondering what the heck they were arguing about.
Well, yeah, I think what's going on there is the court does not want to, a majority of the court does not want to issue a broad decision in that case. If forced to decide on the merits whether a state can ban gay marriage, I think that 5 people on the court would say no, they cannot. That Kennedy would join the liberals on the court to say that that's a violation of the Equal Protection Clause. He doesn't want to do that. He would rather not do that now. He would rather leave it up to the democratic process for a while. But if he's forced to do it, I cannot see him joining an opinion which says that it is constitutional to ban gay marriage, because that would put it solidly in the Constitution. for the foreseeable future. And I don't think he wants to do that because I think he thinks the world is moving in that direction. So they're looking for a way to get out of it, having taken it. And he, in fact, suggested at the argument yesterday, well, why do we take this case? Maybe we ought to get rid of it. And they can dismiss it and improvidently grant it. The problem is that if they do that, they leave the Ninth Circuit decision standing, which holds the California statute unconstitutional. And the conservatives on the court don't want to do that because they don't like the Ninth Circuit. They don't like the opinion. They want to get rid of it. So if they do that, then they're going to leave standing something they don't like. They could hold that there's no justiciable controversy in this case because the government of California thinks that the California proposition is unconstitutional, and the challengers think it's unconstitutional. And so the people who are trying to push the constitutionality, there's a question of whether they have standing to do that. So if you say, hey, they don't have standing to do that, then you go back to the district court, which held the California proposition unconstitutional. So I don't think the conservatives on the court want to do that either. So they have a real dilemma as to what to do with the thing.
And Kennedy is the key here
Kennedy
again?
is the key, yeah. I think there are 4 people on the court who would vote to say that banning gay marriage violates the Equal Protection Clause. And I think if he were forced to vote on that issue, he would agree with them. He's been the leader on the court on gay rights.
I thought an interesting quote not only was, I'm not even sure we should be doing this, was when he feared the court was entering, quote, uncharted waters. I mean, I think for those who are looking at this from a distance, they think that's what the court is supposed to do.
Yes, but the court has, this is not new. The court often lags behind and waits to see whether there is a groundswell going in a certain direction, and then will join in. The court did not hold segregated schools unconstitutional when it first realized they were unconstitutional, which was certainly by the beginning of the 1930s. They decided a whole series of cases specifically about, you can't do this, you can't do that,
yes,
for particular reasons. And then finally in 1954 they got around to it, when everybody by that time knew that it was unconstitutional. The same thing with abortion. The court didn't jump in and say abortion statutes were unconstitutional early on. New York was changing its law. In fact, in the case Roe and Wade, Texas was changing its law to make it easier to get an abortion. And the court said you had to make it a lot easier. So the court waits for things to develop. Maybe that's not principled of them, but that's what they do.
It's interesting to hear that because you kind of think of them sequestered and we're not supposed to be looking at public. They do look at what's happening.
Well, you know that they do look at that. And they don't want to lose the confidence of the public by seeming to go way out ahead. They would rather do it when it's generally acceptable. And so you say, well, why did they take that case? They took that case because the Ninth Circuit held California statute unconstitutional. And they thought, we better take that because the Ninth Circuit must have done something wrong, because it's always doing wrong things. If the Ninth Circuit had upheld the kind of California statute, they never would have taken the case.
Interesting.
So they sort of trapped themselves.
Okay, so that's the California Prop 8 case there. That was before the court yesterday. Now we've got this Federal Defense of Marriage Act before the court today. Right. What kind of arguments did we hear?
Well, that is, the statute says that federal benefits which go to married people, and as you must know, there's a whole range of, I think somebody said 1,000 federal statutes dealing with benefits or detriments that married people have. There's a Federal Defense of Marriage Act which says that you're only married for the purposes of federal law if you're a one man and one woman couple, that gay couples are not married for purposes of federal law. And the question is whether that's constitutional. The case involves a woman who lived with another woman, and they were finally married in Canada, and they came back to New York, and New York recognized their marriage. And then one of them died, leaving a considerable estate to the other. If they're married for purposes of federal law, there's an estate tax deduction, exemption, and she would have to pay the surviving partner would have to pay no estate tax. If they're not married, then it's about $300,000 in estate tax that she has to owe. So she doesn't think she ought to have to pay that. That is complicated because she sued to get the money back. She had to pay it, and then she was suing for a refund. And the federal government said, we're not going to defend this statute in court because we think it's unconstitutional, but we're going to continue to enforce it. So we're not going to give you your money back, but if you sue us, we'll tell everybody you're right. That creates a real problem for the court because they say the federal government is not defending its own statute. Why is there a case before it?
Right.
Why doesn't the federal government just give her the money back because they think she has a right to it? And that's a big problem. So the court could use that as an excuse, a reason not to decide that case.
So we got a couple of punts possible for these?
Yeah, at least a couple, probably more than that. And so in these are really interesting cases to show this point. You don't know whether these are important cases or not until you read the opinions. These could be bombshells or they could be basically nothing. And it depends upon how the court writes the opinion. And how that goes depends on what they can get 5 people to agree on.
And doesn't it also, Chief Justice Roberts, how much of a factor is, we always hear how much of a legacy he wants to leave. He wants to be a uniter, if not a divider, to coin the phrase. Is that a factor here at all? What he sees as the court's, I don't know, gravitas?
Well, he doesn't have any special power on the court as Chief Justice. The only powers he has are he can assign the cases when he's in the majority. Otherwise, it's the senior justice in the majority who assigns the cases. So that is something of power. But his vote isn't worth any more than anybody else's vote. And I think people have thought after he voted to uphold Obamacare on a very strange ground last June, that was a statesman-like thing. He was trying to avoid the court being caught in a really bad controversy. These cases, and a couple of other cases that the court has this term, are going to indicate to me anyway whether he really is turning into a statesman or whether he isn't. This is a perfect example. He could try to maneuver things here. By the way, he assigns the cases, which opinion he joins, to try to make sure that the court does something that's as acceptable as possible to the public. Or he could vote to say that it's perfectly constitutional to ban gay marriage, which would be quite a strong revolutionary sort of thing, which would cause a lot of controversy. So it'll give him an opportunity to try to play the statesman's role if he wants to do that.
Last question real quickly. How unusual to have these 2 cases back to back, such big cases, California being challenged, and California's not even doesn't even want to represent itself. The U.S. being challenged, the U.S. doesn't even want to represent it. That's got to be unusual.
It is very unusual. You have the government of California disavowing a California constitutional provision, and you have the government of the United States disavowing a federal statute. That causes problems for a court.
I'll bet it does. Well, and that makes for good for us having you on to explain it to. Good to have you here. Thanks so much for joining us. State lawmakers are considering a bill that would give tax credits to insurance companies that invest in certain Arizona high-tech ventures. Here to talk about the bill and the state of Arizona's high-tech sector is Steve Zylstra, President and CEO of the Arizona Technology Council. Good to see you again. Thanks for joining us. Let's talk about this bill, high-tech investment tax credits. Give us a better definition here.
Well, what we're trying to do here is create a venture capital fund that's focused on early-stage investments in technology companies and use a sort of ingenious mechanism to capitalize the fund. Other states have done this. They've used insurance premium tax credits. In this case, the insurance companies get a 1-to-1 tax credit for capitalizing the fund. Once the fund starts generating returns, first the state gets paid back, in this case $50 million for the tax credits it put out. And then the insurance companies begin benefiting from the returns on the fund. In addition to that, a percentage of the returns will be used to make the fund evergreen.
What kind of parameters are involved in terms of these investments?
So first of all, the legislation requires that the Arizona Commerce Authority, who would administer this fund, hire an upper quartile fund manager to manage the fund and make the investments. That takes the politics out of this. So the state itself is not picking winners and losers. An experienced venture capitalist is doing that. Now, why would the state get involved in something like this? Well, it turns out that, we do pretty well in the seed capital area or the angel investment area. We have an angel investment tax credit, and we have a few venture funds in the later stage. This early stage capital issue is a problem. It's called the Valley of Death.
Why? Why is the problem?
Well, it's a problem all over the U.S. And by the way, almost every other state in the country has created a fund like this, a state-supported fund. Very often they simply appropriate the funds. Sometimes they use the pension funds. And it's just one of the riskier phases of a company's continuum. And it's difficult to get investors to make investments at that stage. Yet that's exactly when the companies need it. They've already done the research. They've proven the science. They need funding to take that company forward.
How much would this cost the state? I mean, in terms of revenue that might come into the state, what kind of projections as far as
So
the cost?
initially, it's a $50 million fund. It would be $10 million in 2014, $20 million in 15, and $20 million in 16. But as I said, once the fund starts generating returns, the state gets paid back 100% for the investment it made.
And this, again, the idea is to prompt investment that wouldn't ordinarily happen?
What's happening is, I'll just give you a list. Have you ever heard of SoCom, Amplify Health, ViewLinks, Ribomed, Note Hall?
No.
Probably not.
No.
That's because those are companies that were born here but left because they couldn't get funding here. These are one of them, Note Hall, actually won in Shark Tank. So these companies are moving out of Arizona, moving to California and Texas, Illinois, the East Coast, because they can't find early stage capital here. So we're losing the future income from those companies as well as the job creation.
Okay, we have that high-tech investment tax credit bill over here. Let's talk about the high-tech sector in general. Still some traction? What's going on?
I would say it's very healthy. There's been some indicators lately that Arizona has one of the hottest markets when it comes to tech jobs, according to DICE. I see the industry picking up precipitously. I think that the economy is starting to improve overall, and the tech sector is always out in front of the rest of the economy. Even in the depths of the Great Recession, unemployment in the tech sector was between 3% and 4%.
And you mentioned Dice.com, this is a job search site, had Phoenix area 4th in year-to-year job growth and job listings and 4th in increased advertised the salaries. The average salary, I think, for the advertised jobs was $84,000.
Yeah, and that's more than double the average in Arizona. And in addition to that, you've seen a number of companies attracted here recently. You've seen GM is bringing an IT center here. ZogDot was just announced yesterday, bringing a company here or expanding a company here from New York. Stealth Software, 1,000 jobs. So things are picking up.
It's one thing to say that we're doing well and that they're picking up and we're gaining speed. But are we gaining speed and watching the San Franciscos, the San Diegos, the New Englands, the Charlottes, whatever? Are they gaining as much speed and still moving ahead of us?
Well, California is struggling somewhat just because of the environment that it has there. Texas, the Austin is a very vibrant area, so we have plenty of competition around the country for tech companies and tech talent. But I would say that we've got the finest ecosystem for tech-based companies that we've ever had in Arizona right now.
Explain what that means.
Well, that means we have incubators, we have some of the tools that Governor Brewer and Andy Tobin have created in the last couple of years to lower corporate income taxes, lower business property taxes, improve the angel investment tax credit, and improve job training program, extend the net operating loss carry forward period, has made us have one of the best business climates in the country, and it makes it very attractive for tech companies.
And we're seeing results?
We are.
Okay. Steve, it's good to have you here. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Appreciate
It's a pleasure.
And Thursday on Arizona Horizon, we'll hear some tips on how to better survive the state's inevitable real estate booms, and we'll tell you about Soot and Spit, a play that illustrates the life of a very unusual artist. As at 5:30 and 10 on the next Arizona Horizon. And don't forget, Friday we have our Journalists Roundtable. That's all set to go for Friday. That's it for now. I'm Ted Simons. Thank you so much for joining us. You have a great evening.
If you have comments about Arizona Horizon, please contact us at one of the addresses on your screen. Your comments may be used on a future edition of Arizona Horizon. Thank you. Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of Eight, members of your Arizona PBS station. Thank you.
Support for Arizona technology and innovation on Horizon comes from Intel, helping to transform the lives of millions through education, working with countries, communities, and schools worldwide to bring the resources and solutions needed for advancing education. For information, Intel.com.